Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the December meeting of the BDAA online chapter. I'm your host for today, Kirsty Wolf. I'm stepping in for Jennifer Binns this month. I'm coming to you from the Blue Mountains in New South Wales. That's the home of the Darug and Gundungurra people, and I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay respects to their elders past and present. Now, in the chat function, it'd be great if everyone can say hello and let us know where they're coming from. And if you're interested, you can also let us know something great about where you are today. This month, we have two exciting speakers. We have Paul Mulholland from DDEG, and we also have Carly Roberts from James Hardie, who will be introducing us to one of their new products. But first, just running through a little bit of news. This is the last online chapter meeting for 2022. The online chapter meetings will start again in February 2023 on Tuesday, the 7th of February. So there'll be no online chapter meeting for January. So mark the date down in your diary for Tuesday, the 7th of February, and we'll see you all then. With the upcoming holiday break, we'd like to wish everybody a safe and happy holiday period. Also, just letting people know that the BDA office will be closed over the holidays. It will be closing on Thursday, the 22nd of December, and reopening on Monday, the 16th of January 2023. In preparation for next year, we'd like everyone to think about if they have any new trends that they would like to be included in the Trends edition of the upcoming By Design magazine. This magazine will be coming out in February next year. So if you have anything, could you please send your articles and case studies into Sarah Jane at media@bdaa.com.au. And we can put that address in the chat function for you as well, in case anyone missed my quick rendition of that. Also, to finish off 2022, we have two upcoming formal CPD knowledge events for thermal performance assessors. Those two events are the Shading Your Surroundings, Shading Eaves and Obstructions. This will be taking place on the 14th of December at 8:30 a.m. and it will cover things such as how to apply shading, eaves and obstructions correctly, efficiently and successfully. Following up on this, there'll be a further session called Demystifying Windows, which will also be at 8:30 a.m. a week later on the 21st of December. And in this session, we'll learn how to apply windows correctly and successfully, calculate opening sizes, and delve into window values. There'll be links placed in the chat for people to register for both of these events. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker for today, and that's Paul Mulholland from DDEG. Paul's the principal at DDEG, and of course I had to do my little bit of background. I wanted to know who DDEG were because they are a new industry partner with the BDAA. And if you were fortunate enough to attend the National Festival of Design down in Melbourne, you may have met Paul or some of his colleagues at the trade show. What I did find out, though, was wanting to know what DDEG stood for, is that DDEG are, in fact, an agglomeration from a number of previous organisations who are Dobbs Doherty Fire Safety Engineers, Cogent Acoustics, 3D Access, 3D Building Solutions, and these organisations have all joined together this year to become DDEG, which is kind of a one-stop shop for all your performance solution services. So they specialise in performance solutions, and their areas of expertise cover their building engineering disciplines of fire safety, disability access, acoustics and building solutions. So A lot of building designers I know are a little bit reluctant to do performance solutions, often because they don't know how to go about it or who to approach. Now, I'm sure that today, Paul will be able to discuss with you all of those things to demystify performance solutions and how you can get your performance solution reports done. Paul, welcome you online.
Thank you, Kirsty. What a wonderful intro. And you've explained everything about us quite clearly, so that's great. I'm just going to share my screen. Can you see my screen or?
Not yet, Paul.
Only when I hit share.
We can see your screen now.
Great. All right. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me here. It's a real pleasure to be presenting to you. As Kirsty mentioned, BDAA, we are a performance solution specialist company. The acronym is Dobbs Doherty Engineering Group, which is what we, as Kirsty mentioned, we were 4 companies under one roof. We've just come under one banner, just to make it a little easier for clients when they call. So I'll just, sorry, PowerPoint. So we specialize in performance solutions, as Kirsty mentioned, fire, safety, acoustics, disability access, and general building solutions, which is my part of the team. There's 60 of us in the office in Melbourne. We've been operating 10 years, and we've got an office in Hobart, Brisbane, and Canberra as well. We're looking to open one in Sydney, hopefully next year at some stage. So I'm the director of the solutions team. I'm a building surveyor or building certifier. I'm also an accredited disability access consultant. Very involved in the industry down here. I sit on the Building Appeals Board in Victoria, mentor junior building surveyors, and also have a team of graduate engineers who we're bringing up to facade engineering status. So we regularly work on large projects and small projects. So I'll just go through some common performance solutions, just to give everyone an idea of some of the things we cover. For our fire team, we do both residential and commercial work. In residential, a lot of the things as lot sizes get smaller and smaller, it does get harder to build further from the boundary. So where the materials are non-combustible, we can provide a performance solution for things like verandas and patios and carports. I'll keep it going. For commercial, if anybody's familiar with fire performance in commercial buildings, largely it has a lot to do with travel distances and getting people out of the building safely. And then different types of stairs, spandrels, and just general egress of getting people out. For acoustics, party walls and construction defects, in domestic or residential projects. And in commercial projects, especially typically class 2 apartment buildings, you get reduced impacts justified for sharing a lift, providing access to apartments and apartment bounding and party walls. The acoustics team gets largely engaged at the planning stage of the project. And as we've found, as we've ventured into Queensland, there's a lot of large towns that have major transport routes, or they'll have an airport right next to the town. So for example, Rockhampton, Mackay and Townsville have all of those things. So just about every building needs some sort of report done. Disability access, there's not a great deal in residential because it's not covered under AS 1428. However, I would suggest watch this space, because next year with the new BCA coming out, there's going to be livable housing requirements that will borrow some of the things from the livable housing standard, and that's going to affect residential building quite considerably. So variation to stairs, reduced access clearances, and latch light clearances at doorways. The main one for disability access is commercial. widths between stairs, handrails, reduced accessible clearances in rooms, the use of unisex ambulance facilities. At the moment in the BCA, the only unisex toilets are accessible toilets. Where it's suitable, we provide a performance solution to allow an ambulant toilet to become unisex, which then doubles your toilet numbers in that area. Rationalise wheelchair turning spaces and reduce lakeside clearances. Again, where the building has particular uses like a childcare centre where it's only open when there's staff there and there's staff on hand to assist people, we can work with that as well. Get them to sign a management plan to make sure that there'll be somebody to assist when there's doors that need to be held open and things like that. And this is my team. It's a fairly new area. It's really come about in the last couple of years. What we do is everything in the BCA outside access and fire. So every anomaly in the BCA or non-compliance, level entries into building with 0 thresholds, strip drains at doorways, skylights, not an approved roofing material. They're only mentioned in the BCA for lighting, but they're not actually listed as an approved roofing material. Velux has a code mark certificate, but any custom built ones they require a performance solution. Waterproofing of balconies and roof terraces, so where it's an alternative roofing design over a habitable area. Weatherproofing to external cladding, if they're even some with code mark certificates will have a requirement as a site-specific performance solution report. Polished concrete in wet areas. Stairs exceeding 18 rises. Basements, there's literally nothing in the BCA for basements at all. And in Sydney and Victoria, especially in Melbourne, basements are becoming quite elaborate with gyms, home cinemas, things like that. So once they become habitable, they trigger a whole lot of natural light and ventilation issues as well. Subfloor ventilation, if you've ever extended an older house that was on footings and you've suddenly added a slab at the back, it can reduce your subfloor ventilation and you require mechanical ventilation. Very similar in commercial. I won't rehash what I've just said, but some of the main ones we get: level bathroom floors, the new BCA and the new AS 3740 for wet areas is going to be asking for a 1 in 80 gradient in the main part of the bathroom to a secondary floor waste, which will be like a second shower. It's going to feel like a shower. So we do calculations and show that providing there's a kick tile at the door, the whole floor is tanked, and there's overflows on the basins, that you can still achieve with an almost 0 level entry, that it'll still function just fine. Reduced ceiling heights is quite common. Sometimes via stairs or a powder room underneath stairs might have a reduced ceiling height. Again, arrangement with stairs. A lot of the higher end homes have those large sweeping staircases that can go up to 21 rises. Sorry. Oh God, I'm terrible at this. Waterproofing, again with balconies. Variation to natural light. These are to name a few. There's quite a number of them in the BCA. There's a lot of holes in the BCA, and that's why we sort of come in. The best time to engage us, it's, I would say, always sooner than later. We always encourage members pick up the phone, even if it's not a job. If you've just got a question, give us a call. We're happy to go through things with you. As I say, we specialise in this, so we're pretty quick to provide answers. Larger projects often get engaged around the planning. That can be with the acoustics team and also the fire services team. They'll go through things throughout the project quite a lot. Smaller projects, we get engaged usually once the building certifier or surveyor, whichever state you're in, provides the RFI for the job, and he might say, external weatherproofing, please provide a performance solution. So that's when we typically get engaged. And we recommend all building designers to appoint your building surveyor fairly early if you can, just to get them on board and to sort of, or get the client to get them on board so they can review things quickly. while they're still at design stage. A lot easier to fix things or change things. The other one is to factor into the budget the requirement for performance solutions, because a lot of time we found that clients are getting hit with an extra fee for something and they say, well, we didn't know about this. And it's good to sort of let the clients know, look, there's quite a possibility there'll be some of this on the project. And so they're not sort of shocked when they get yet another fee. The best way to engage us, as I said, always pick up the phone. We're always happy to chat. Email a set of working drawings and a brief description of what you're doing, or a checklist from the building certifier or surveyor. And we'll usually get back within 1 to 2 days. We typically get back the same day. So what we prepare, a performance solution is documented in a performance-based design brief and then followed up with a performance solution report. The design brief outlines the approach we're going to take. That gets signed off by all the stakeholders, so the building designer, the client, the building certifier, and by us as well. And what it does is just, it's not everybody taking liability for the job, it's just simply everybody acknowledging there is a performance solution on the job. This is to mostly to let the clients know that this is what's happening and make sure everybody's on board. And followed by that, we also, on the same day we issue the performance-based solution report, which has got the entire report with all the technical part of it added. And that's usually watermarked, so it can go back and forward to the building certifier or surveyor as many times as it needs to, until they're accepting it as well. Because that's the goal in the end, is to ensure that the building certifier or surveyor will accept, you know, the performance solution. We don't price anything that we can't support. We've never had anything knocked back from a building certifier or surveyor. We always make sure we keep them happy and continue working with them, you know, until they are happy. So how much do they cost and how long do they take? I guess how long is a piece of string? A little bit. It depends on the risk and the complexity. For residential projects, 1,200 to 1,500 for a small performance solution. Once we go up to weatherproofing of a 30-story building, they go into the tens of thousands. The timing, performance solutions vary. They can be as quick as 1 to 2 weeks. 2 to 3 weeks is probably average. We always say 10 to 15 days. The fire team has 15 to 20 days. But once you also include the fire services or fire brigade in the relevant state, that can obviously drag that out quite a bit longer. But we have, as I said, we're probably the largest in Australia doing this. So we've got a pretty good turnaround time. I mentioned before the stakeholders in the performance-based design brief. So this can be the client, the developer, the building designer, the authority having jurisdiction, which is the building surveyor or certifier, and other consultants can be included. Engineers, fire brigade, building occupier and tenant, if it's for a specific case. And what it does is just lets everybody on board know what's happening. And previously, years ago, people were sort of doing dispensations and then putting them in with the building permit documents and lodging it with council without actually telling anybody there was something happening. And if something goes wrong later on, the owner or the client might actually turn around and say, well, hang on, I didn't know anything about this. So it's restoring that sort of trust in the industry and keeping everybody on board. And the role of the building designer in all of this, we use this analogy that the building designer is acting both as designer and managing consultant. So using a film analogy, they're a director and a lead actor at the same time. And with the specialist consultants are the supporting actors. So particularly true on a small to mid-sized projects that don't have the luxury of a separate project manager. And with this considered, most building designers benefit from to have a high level of appreciation for the services that the consultants can offer. We sort of, one of the things, we free up the design process a little bit where you're not completely constrained to the BCA deemed to satisfy standards, because it's very black and white and assumes that every building is built, you know, on a nice level block and built perfectly. So, and that brings me to the end of the presentation.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Paul. We already have a couple of questions for you, if that's all right.
Sure, I'm going to stop sharing. I can see them.
Okay. A couple of questions have come in. We have one from Lara, which is asking about whether you do performance solutions for bushfire.
No, that's a common one we get. And unfortunately, BAL assessments and bushfire are a particular beast, if you want to call it that. And if we sort of say, yep, flex the rules, and then suddenly a fire tears through the place, it's way too risky.
I don't think she's talking about BAL assessments, but really whether a particular solution would meet the requirements for that bushfire rating.
In Victoria, we've had, just a quick example, we've had a 100-year-old timber house that is built in a flame zone up in the mountains. And the extension was more than 50% of the volume, which triggered a building permit, and, you know, as if they're building a new building. We refer them onto the Building Appeals Board in Victoria to make that decision. So not so much via a performance solution. In a practical sense, it makes no sense to have to adhere to BAL 40 or BAL 29 when half the house is made of timber. But unfortunately, yeah, it's not something we can do as a performance solution.
Now, look, that's great. Also had a comment from Rex, who has commented that the Design Link team at CSR have had customers make good use of your performance reports already. So that's a great feedback for you.
Yeah, no, that's great.
We have another question in relation to stairs, which is about how you can get more than 18 rises in a Class 1 staircase. Now, I think the answer to that might be that's what your performance solution is addressing. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're going to a complete study from Monash University about human movement, that once you're in the rhythm of a stair, an additional couple of rises is not going to, you know, make a great deal of difference. We usually add things to, you know, ensure there's lighting in the stairs, adequate lighting, handrails. Can always add a second handrail if needs be, if it's suitable. The deemed to satisfy of the building code is the absolute base. That's the minimum requirement. So what we're trying to do is go above and beyond. So when we do a performance solution report, we try to make sure that we're going a much higher standard than what the DTS is. I've just seen a question, do we work in New South Wales? I'm registered in every state in Australia. And yeah, so we work everywhere. That's from George at GAP Designers.
I think what we need to look at is that performance solutions are used where you can't meet or aren't able to meet the deemed to satisfy, such as that stair issue. And so designers need to be aware that if your design does not meet that deemed to satisfy, this is where performance solutions come into their own. And this is why you'd be contacting Paul at DDEG to do that performance solution for you. Yeah,
I mean, there's some really unusual little ones in the BCA, such as swimming pool drainage. There's a performance requirement that a pool must drain into the sewer, but there's no DTS for it. So technically speaking, every pool requires a performance solution report for drainage. Different states have different sub rules, like I think Queensland, the EPA deals with it, but in Victoria it's dealt with via a performance solution. So
I think that we've got a question from Michael, who's asking about whether you can talk about how designers can access performance solutions that have been adopted for existing buildings. So I think what he's looking at is how do we know what type of performance solutions might be possible if we haven't had to ask for them before?
True. It is a fairly new area. So I think the ones I've mentioned so far are fairly common ones. building certifiers and surveyors are getting more and more on board and sort of saying, okay, they're starting to pick things in their RFI and saying, here's our checklist. These are the parts that, you will require one. So they're directing building designers towards us. I guess, as I keep saying, pick up the phone, give us a call. We're always more than happy to chat and provide advice. Sometimes it won't lead to a job. We'll actually say it's quite simple. If you change the design slightly, you will be DTS. You don't need us, and we're happy to do that. So it's a win-win for everybody that way.
Paul, I've got my own question. In
Please.
A design where we had about 3 different performance solutions, I had a private certifier ask me for a summary of the performance solutions. Have you ever come across that before? Or is that a common type of request from building certifiers?
A summary of them? Not particularly. That's a strange one. We've had, can we see your CV? We've had, I think the biggest things to look out for is, there's other people doing these reports. Are they thorough? Do they cover everything really to a high standard? It's probably good to ask for insurance, because we go through a great deal of difficulty every year reinsuring us, because we are literally certifying something on almost every building permit that goes out. So our insurance is huge. So whereas I've seen before, building designers will do a very simple performance solution report for weatherproofing of a house, but I really encourage members to check your insurance that it does state performance solutions if you're going to do them, because most insurers are quite wary of it, because it does come with inherent risk. But we manage that risk, I think, quite well.
Fantastic. Just asking if there's any further questions out there for Paul, or if everyone's sort of thinking carefully about all the performance solutions they're going to ask you to do.
Yeah, but back to that question, I think it's a matter of us engaging more as well with industry, just to sort of let people know this is what you can do. There is, and they're sort of asking, how do we ask for things we don't know? I guess if you're looking at a job, and a very common one is when you're doing part of the buildings below ground and you have to waterproof a corner of the building because you're using the earth around it to retain just a small corner of the building. That's a very common one, because buildings are not built on perfect flat blocks.
Sorry, I missed a whole lot of questions there. We do have a few more coming through. One of them is, if you're working on an existing building, do you need to know whether a performance solution has been adopted?
It would be good to, especially for things like fire. If there's an existing building and there's a fire performance solution in place, because if you're doing changes to that building that might alter what was in the original performance solution, you may need a new one to cover that. Okay. Same with all of them, really, for disability access, etc.
All right. Next question was that refers to, you mentioned with the NCC 2022 that we'll need an extra floor waste outside of an unenclosed shower, and your performance solution is for 1, not adding an extra floor waste or having 2 without grading to it, but providing a hob under the bathroom door. Sorry, I'm not quite sure if that's...
Yep, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, look, we look at bathrooms. There's a couple of ways you can attack it. The best to start with is overflows on basins, and we do a calculation to show that you could run the tap all day long and the overflow will work without any water coming out. For the bathroom floors, we typically get the builder to kick the tile up 5 mil at the doorway. Mm-hmm. So it flows back in towards the bathroom. And then we do a calculation for the entire bathroom floor to show that if any water, in the event that it did come out of the basin, it's going to hit the floor. Eventually it will go into the secondary floor waste before it goes outside into the rest of the building or house or whatever. We also do things like at the shower door to have a 10 mil gap underneath, so it'll also find the shower base. So it's a matter of getting the water to find the lowest part of the room before it goes the wrong way.
Excellent. Another question from Rex was asking whether you can elaborate on the fact that all cavity facade systems fall into the performance solution category.
They do. Commercial buildings, there's no DTS whatsoever. And for a number of products for residential, EPS, for example, expanded polystyrene, that all requires a performance solution. There's a number of FC sheets that require a performance solution. And yeah, we specialize in, that's a large part of the work that we do. Next year, the BCA will include a couple of materials. It'll include brick, it'll include sheet metal cladding, and it'll include Hebel or aerated autoclaved panels. If you build the building entirely from brick, it's DTS. If you add more than one system, the join will require a performance solution. This was questioned at a seminar last year. The ABCB, Australian Building Codes Board, said buildings are too complex for us to do a complete blanket rule for everything. So they said these standalone materials are DTS, but if you're using a hybrid system, suddenly they need a performance solution again.
Fantastic. Just one last question from Greg, asking whether it's to do possible to do a solution to Australian standards, such as a turning circle at a residential property for a car entering and exiting in a forward direction. Referring to Australian standard as opposed to the building code, but the building code refers to Australian standards.
Yeah, we would certainly take a look at it, but it might be something for like a traffic management company to have a look at. I know we had one the other day that was for a underground car park in a apartment building, and we had to refer that to a traffic management because it didn't trigger access, it didn't trigger anything that we would, cover. I noticed there's a question about, do you assess the job for a fee or is it free advice? It's free advice upfront. So again, that's why I always say pick up the phone. We're happy to chat because we'll look at something. We're pretty good at what we do, I think, and we can give you a pretty quick answer. If not, I've got a team of 15 who love researching. We have the resources to put things under the microscope. A good example is overseas products that are tested overseas. So we'll check out that the lab that they're tested in overseas has the same requirements as our Australian testing. And then we can do a report to, compare and make sure that what you're specifying is equal to what we have here.
Fantastic. Look, I think everyone's learned quite a lot today, and they'll all be looking at the building code a little bit differently now with the possibility of performance solutions in mind. Thank you very much for that. If there's any other questions, Paul, I'm sure, can just answer those online for you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you for having me.
And welcome to being associated with the wonderful Building Designers Association. We'd now like to move on to today's second speaker, who is Carly Roberts from James Hardie. Very excited today to be having the launch of a new product, which is called Hardie Oblique. It was only launched yesterday, so building designers are getting the very first introduction to this product. The Hardie Oblique is an exterior cladding that features an alternating angled and straight grooved edge. It brings bold lines and ever-shifting shadows to contemporary facades, providing a sleek, confident and contemporary product. The oblique board comes in 2 widths and offers multiple design solutions. So, Carly.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, the intro was stolen on my content. No, I'll show you some more, but I'm just going to share, and now I'm hoping that I do it in a way that means that I can share sound. Hang on a second. Oops. Am I able to share sound? It's not allowing me to click the button to share sound.
Carly, you should be able to just click those 2 radio buttons at the bottom of the bigger screen and then just press share, and it should actually, the audio will come through our computers also.
As I'm sharing, I've got the screen up, but the 2 buttons they're not clicking. I don't know why. Let me try again. Share screen. Yeah, not allowing me to click those radio buttons for some reason.
Can you maybe just make sure your volume's up quite high and we can see whether we can actually hear your video as you play?
Yeah, sure thing. Just a second. Oop. Yeah, can you see my presentation screen?
Yes, we can. Okay.
Very hard act to follow talking about performance solutions. I know that's a super, super hot topic sometimes. But hopefully, you know, as a marketing person, I'm showing you more pretty pictures and some visuals about our brand new cladding launch, which happened Monday. So it's very, very early in its launch, and we're super, super excited about it. So I want to introduce Hardy Oblique Cladding to you today. So look, I mean, I kind of have mentioned this in a few sort of BDAA presentations over the past year, but you know, really James Hardie has really led that sort of Hamptons look and coastal look across Australia for many, many years. You would know many of our products that sort of replicate a kind of a wood look, if you like. But you know, a lot of research that we've done has really highlighted the fact that, you know, over 50% of buyers, home buyers, want that kind of modern contemporary style of home. And I guess, you know, based on that research, it kind of led us on a journey in terms of our innovation and launches. And so our modern innovation journey really started with Hardie Fine Texture Cladding, and already that product is really accounting for, you know, a good chunk of the render market, and is growing, you know, recently won a good design award, etc. So, you know, that product, which was really about replicating the kind of render look that is so common in kind of modern contemporary homes, was launched. But today we're here to talk about the next wave of Hardie innovation, and actually it's not coming, but it's actually here. So Hardie Oblique Cladding it was launched officially this week in Australia. So, you know, it'll slowly be making its way onto sort of the Bunnings and, you know, Mitre 10 type pages, and, you know, will be available to order. But it's for many years been a star performer in New Zealand. I'm going to, now just give me a heads up if it's not.
We sort of plonked the house smack bang in the middle of 50 acres. Any way we look out, we see paddocks and animals, and it's quite nice. For the cladding, we've used 2 widths of James Hardie Oblique.
We just wanted to have something interesting for the cladding that wasn't kind of all the same, so we chose 2 different widths. Yeah, just to be a little bit different. The James Hardie was great being low maintenance, and a lot of the decisions that we made were about being low maintenance. Main feature is the living space, the high ceilings, wooden fireplace, and just the feeling of space.
I like big open space. Jules likes cosy, so a lot of thought went into how could we achieve both.
Did you hear that?
Yes, we did.
Oh, good. Fantastic. So that just gives you a little bit of a, you know, insight into how Hardie Oblique cladding is being used. Obviously, from the accent, you can tell it's New Zealand-based house. But really, I guess what Hardie Oblique is doing is sort of rounding out that vertical groove cladding portfolio for James Hardie. So I'm sure everyone is aware of Axon, you know, has been one of our most popular products for a very long time. And that's an 8.5mm thick board, has 2 different sizes, and has a sort of a subtle VJ groove, if you like. And then there's Stria cladding, which is more of a shiplap board rather than a whole sort of panel. And they're 14mm and, you know, 2 different sizes, but again, a slightly deeper groove. But oblique comes in, you know, 14 mil thick boards, 2 different sizes, but it's the depth of the groove that kind of makes it truly unique. I'll go into that a little bit more in a sec. So I guess Hardy oblique cladding really is about delivering that bold modern look through its wide grooves and angled edges. It's the only Hardy exterior cladding product with a slanted groove edge that mixes shadows and highlights, providing interest and depth. So I'll show you a picture in a sec, but it's when you connect the 2 shiplaps, one side is beveled and one side is straight. So it really allows for that light to come in and hit that beveled edge and give you a really deep look. And it sort of has that appearance of standing seam metal cladding, which I know is a very big trend out there and really, you know, desired by homeowners, but often a little bit unaffordable or, you know, out of reach for a lot of people. It's got 2 sizes, so 200 mil, 300 mil, that you can use separately or interchange, you know, either as a pattern or a sort of a randomized pattern. And, you know, that allows you obviously to be creative with your facades. So you can sort of see here a little bit more how the groove kind of goes together. So it just means that when orientated northwards, the slanted edge creates that depth and elevation, making it similar in appearance to that standing seam metal look. So the key features are its grooves, so 23 mil wide and 6 mil deep, with the option to place the oblique edge left or right. So you just spin the boards around depending on how you want it to, where you want it to direct. It has that lovely highlight when orientated northwards. There's the 2 widths. Obviously, they're supplied primed, ready to paint like all of our products. You can actually install them vertically or horizontally, allowing you to sort of reclad existing homes or use from the ground up for sort of new builds and extensions. And then there's also a sort of a new innovation called a castellated batten, which sits behind the cladding and makes that vertical installation really easy. So I'm not sure if anyone's tried to install stria vertically in the past, but you had to sort of align each of the studs behind the grooves. But now with this castellated batten, which I'll show you a bit more about, it makes it super easy to install vertically. So easy to install, easy to paint, cost effective, fire resistant, 25-year warranty, and obviously Code Mark certified. So as I mentioned, the vertical installation has been made possible because of this new batten. So it's actually a timber batten, which is obviously really unusual for James Hardie to create, given we're a fibre cement company. But our new Hardie castellated batten really allows for drainage and airflow. The batten is cost effective and simplifies the installation process. It doesn't require specialist installers, helping to reduce trades on site, cost and complexity. The oblique cladding comes in 2,750 mil lengths to suit common wall heights, which can help reduce waste, but also comes in 4,200 mil lengths as well, giving tall walls a continuous look without needing horizontal joints, which is you know, a super benefit as well. I'm just going to quickly fly through some images that we've gotten from New Zealand. So this little farmhouse is just the 300 mil on its own. And then here's an example of how you can use the 200 mil and 300 mil together in a sort of in a pattern. This is actually a bespoke arrangement. So sometimes it's a pattern, like, you know, it's you can sort of see there's the thinner, thicker, thinner, thicker, thinner, you know, they've made up their own kind of bespoke pattern there. Here's another alternating 200 and 300 mil example. You know, we often get told by, you know, in the case studies that we've been doing, it's great to be able to paint it black and there's no worries about it cracking, etc. And so, as mentioned previously, it takes sort of some effort from the designer to think about where the house is orientated, and make sure that you actually get the highlight right and angle the oblique groove edge towards the light, so to the north. And then alternating board sizes work better with oblique than, say, stria, which because of their thicknesses, that you don't notice the difference in sizes as much. So oblique is a really good option if you like that kind of alternating look. And then just in terms of tools to help you specify. So we launched the website page on Monday, and the installation guide now includes hardy oblique and stria cladding in the one, and also has instructions around horizontal and vertical. Anyone that has used stria in the past would know that there was kind of a separate technical supplement to allow for vertical installation, but now due to the castellated batten instruction, it's all in one, much more simpler. We're working on the BIM content at the moment. We're looking at about midway through the month for the delivery of the Revit and ArchiCAD content. And actually, it's a good opportunity to let you know that we have a sort of a rollout plan for our BIM content across Revit and ArchiCAD for all of our core cladding products. So there's going to be a really big update happening over the next few months. And, samples of obviously available through launch as well. Now, there are lots of questions, which I'll go through in a sec, I think. Now, do you want me to just go through the chat?
Thank you, Carly. Yes, we do have quite a few questions. A couple firstly relating to fire. We have one asking whether it works up to BAL FZ. So do you have a BAL FZ detail for the oblique product?
BAL FZ, if I'm correct, and I believe there's a technical supplement on our website for bushfire, but usually it's FZ only if it's used in conjunction with one of our Hardy Smart systems.
That sounds consistent with your other products.
Yeah.
The next question is also fire related, which asks whether the timber battens affect the fire rating.
No, I knew you'd ask me that. Not sure. Let me find out. And
would you like to take that as a question on notice?
Yeah.
And perhaps we can report that to our members later on.
Battens affect FRL. Yep. How's the price-wise with other claddings? Yes. I believe it's just above stria. So it is a 14 mil thick, like a robust product, has some extra complexity in the product because of its shiplap. So it just sits slightly above. But, in terms of its comparison on the wall cost to, other products that create that look, much cheaper.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Just seeing if we have any other questions. I see that if anyone would like a sample, there's a link there that people can apply for that.
Yep, amazing. So I'm pretty sure our samples page, we now offer the opportunity to have it painted or not painted with our core products. And if I'm correct, I'm 99% sure that the oblique, we actually do supply 2 pieces. So you get to understand how the shiplap works together and see the that sort of deep groove. I suppose the good thing is we've been able to, because it's been out in New Zealand for quite some years, we've been able to get some really good photos and case studies to promote it. But if you want to have a quick look at the New Zealand site, which might have some more content on it. They call it linear oblique. But we're building all of our content here in Australia as well. So at least you can sort of specify oblique with confidence, because there's many houses that can kind of give you the idea of how it looks.
Fantastic. Couple more, again, some fire rated questions.
Yep.
Asking whether it's okay for BAL 40. without
Yes,
having to do
definitely Bell 40.
Okay, fantastic.
100%. And ArchiCAD, so ArchiCAD will be delivered at the same time as Revit, so mid-December. And just generally, ArchiCAD's also coming for Hardy Fine Texture Cladding and Axon, I'm hoping, before Christmas. But I know that our creators of content are super busy at the moment, so we're just trying to push that through. But then coming next year, we'll also deliver ArchiCAD and Revit updated files for linear, Stria, and eventually Matrix.
Oh, look, that's fantastic to hear, because it's always so helpful to have those files supplied.
Yes, absolutely. And one other thing that we're working on, it's a bit secret squirrel at the moment, but I don't mind talking about it, is we're very, very cognizant of the fact that many of you would design two claddings together that intersect. And so the way we treat junctions is also really important. So there's a lot of work being done in the background, not only about detailing the individual products, but also how they go together.
Oh, look, that sounds very exciting. Looking forward to hearing about that as well.
Lots of stuff
Oh,
happening at Burns Hardy.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Carly. It's been wonderful having you on, and it's always exciting to see a new product available.
Yes, for us too.
Well, thank you very much to all our members for joining us today. We're all about to launch into the end of year break soon, so if everyone can have a safe and healthy break, and we will see you all at the National Online Meeting on the 7th of February next year. Thanks for joining us, and thank you again to Carly and Paul for presenting today.